In our previous episode, we finished with our arrival in Mazatlán after a stopover on the incredible Isla Isabel. While in Mazatlán, we planned to do a few boat projects and plan our sailing trip up into the Sea of Cortez. It was during this planning that we realized this might be a good opportunity to do something we thought about doing for years. That is, to take the train ride through the world-famous Copper Canyon or Barranca del Cobre. Mazatlán affords a reasonable access, well, like a 6-hour bus ride away, to the city of Los Mochis, from which we could catch El Chepe, the Pacifico al Chihuahua Railway that goes through the Copper Canyon. The train ride would be 10 hours each way to our destinations in the Copper Canyon. After the 6-hour bus ride for the roughly 250-mile trip from Mazatlán to Los Mochis, we had some dinner and strolled around near our hotel and found a Thrifty's ice cream shop for dessert. We were up at 4:30 the following morning to catch a cab to arrive at the El Chepe train station by 5:30 a.m., since it had not been possible to purchase our tickets in advance. Luckily, we got there when we did, because by the time we finished buying the tickets, there were 20 more groups of people lined up behind us. An interesting backstory is that 2 months before we took this trip, the infamous drug lord El Chapo Guzman was captured right here in Los Mochis. Did we think about this when we walked to find a restaurant the night of our arrival and while heading to the train station in the dark of early morning? You bet we did.
The train ride is quite spectacular once it leaves Los Mochis, traveling through farm and open rangeland before starting its climb into the mountains. Historically, it took nearly 90 years to complete the entire railroad, as it must traverse many canyons, requiring 86 tunnels and 38 bridges, while climbing to an altitude of about 8,000 feet, over the rail distance of about 400 miles, all the way to Chihuahua. We didn't go all the way to Chihuahua, but got off and stayed a couple of days in 2 towns along the way, Divisadero and Creel. These towns in the surrounding area are home to the Tarahumara native Mexican people who are known for their handicrafts and their long-distance running ability.
Cows wandering around the street.
A Jesuit mission was founded here in 1677 and was called Santa Maria de Temuris after the native Temuris people in the region. We are at 1,026 meters above sea level. Please take time to appreciate the dramatic view of the three levels of switchbacks, bridges, viaducts, tunnel, and the bridal veil falls.
Estación Temoris. A los pasajeros que aquí descienden se les recuerda llevar consigo todas sus pertenencias.
We are arriving.
Our first stop along the way was the little town of Temoris.
Estimados pasajeros.
We will be getting off in Divisadero and then in Creel before making the trip back to Los Mochis. We met a nice couple from Australia and had a lovely meal with them. With the climb in altitude and the rain turning to snow, we stopped in Divisadero, where we stayed for 2 nights. When we got off the train, it was snowing and hailing steadily. The hotel sent a porter to collect our bags along with another couple's. I felt sorry for him as he slipped and slid trying to maneuver the cart through the wet snow, the wheels refusing to turn. We finally made it to the lodge and to our room at the farthest end of the property. We turned the wall heater on and stood by it for 10 minutes. We hadn't expected this. Neither of us packed any warm clothing, and we suffered dearly for that mistake. We finally got warm, and at about 7 p.m. decided to walk over to the main lodge for dinner. It was a cold walk, and the lodge fireplace wasn't big enough to heat the huge room where lodgers could sit and enjoy the great view of the canyon. The lodge and our room were perched on the edge of a deep cliff. We went up to the dining hall, but the food was, I must say, awful, and it was expensive by Mexico standards. We had ordered some kind of mystery meat and brought it back to our room, thinking maybe the white dog we saw wandering around our patio might come back and we could give it to him or her.
Sure enough, when we awoke the next morning, there was the dog standing at our patio door. So we gave last night's mystery meat to the now named dog, Whitey, who ate up every bit of it. We hung out at the lodge most of the day, having some snacks and drinks, checking email, making a few phone calls, watching some kids playing in the snow, and some ladies setting up for the next arriving tourists. Since we vowed not to eat at that lodge again, we went up to the train station area for a late lunch, where there were several stands selling chili rellenos and other Mexican goodies. We had a delicious lunch and planned to come back there for dinner, but when we went there later in the day, everyone had gone home. We thought it was just too cold. I can't say what we had for dinner that night, but it came out of a small, dark Mexican store, or tienda, and it included Coca-Colas and Peggy's favorite snack food, palomitas. So it wasn't all bad. Next morning, we awoke to a clear blue sky and a fabulous view of the canyon from our room. Most of the snow had melted, but it was still very cold. Okay, this is just a little reshoot of yesterday's videos, but no snow and plenty of sunshine. And we're going to be heading, we believe, over to the backside of this mountain. There's a cable car attached to it that runs over to there. Well, there's Whitey. He's back, taking a little snooze in the sun this time. I'm sure he feels better after that great breakfast we gave him. At 10 a.m. we got on a tour bus with a big group of Mexican people who we learned from a bilingual man on the tour was from a club which was made up of Mexican citizens over 60. They got together regularly to have a good time. Later in the day, they all spontaneously started singing on the way back to the hotel. They were great fun.
We were taken to several vista points and finally were led across a hanging bridge hundreds of feet above the canyon floor. I'm not good with heights and turned around after a few steps as Richard went across. One of the Mexican ladies said that she just yells when she's scared, so that's what we did as we walked across. I don't think she was actually scared, but she was just helping me, and I closed my eyes and somehow made it across. We made it to the cable car ride, and after having a bite to eat, traveled across a huge canyon to a place where we got a taste of the Tarahumara people.
So where's the end of He's got his letters standing on air. Oh boy. This little station on the left here is the zip line place, and two people just went off. They are way down there someplace.
No sabe cómo.
Oh, sí, es fácil.
There it goes.
Puentes colgantes.
Es enfrente.
Esa tiene 4 kilómetros y medio.
Oh,
Su longitud va en forma de herradura. Esa también llega a la estación de retorno.
Desde White.
Sí, a lo más alto.
¿Tarahumara Mansion está aquí o...?
¿Dónde está el hotelito blanco?
Hace como está haciendo mucho viento con las...
Barranca bien triste.
Allá va la tía que se lanzó a la tirolesa. Apenas va a alcanzar a subir para los 20 minutos.
Levanten los pies.
Háganse poquito para acá porque van a chocar contra la piedra.
Okay, well here we are. We've landed. Doppelmayr. Ah, that sounds German. Oh, it's nice and warm here.
We saw women and girls dressed in brightly colored ruffled skirts and blouses, with their heads covered in scarves, selling their baskets and other handwork with their small children at their feet or on their backs. There also was a Tarahumara man in native dress, dancing along to the playing of a kind of violin. They are a fascinating group of people, some of whom live in caves located on the canyon walls. It's amazing that such a primitive group still exists in our time. Later in our trip, we would visit a cave dwelling in Creel. We felt we had stepped back in time.
there's where we came from. It looks so pretty.
Porque ganas, ¿verdad? No voy a tirar 100 pesos. Pero sí, mira los doblaron, pero entonces hay que...
The trip back across the canyon was equally exciting as the trip over, and upon arrival, someone walked out on the balanced rock for a demonstration. No safety harnesses attached.
Here she comes. When we returned to the hotel, we checked out and went to the train station to catch El Chepe for Creel. There's Whitey. Okay, can't say goodbye. Bye-bye, Whitey. Yeah. It was a short couple of hours ride that was highlighted by the 360-degree circle turn as shown in this Google Earth photograph. The approach is from the lower left with a swing down into a U-turn and then up to the underpass, then turning to the left around the circle and back over the underpass to continue to the right, leading to Creel. The following video begins while going through the underpass and ends as we pass over the underpass with Peggy exclaiming, "There it is!" as she saw the track where we were on just a few minutes before, where we entered the underpass to start the loop. We were met at the train station and driven a half-mile to our hotel. The snow was gone, but it is still pretty cold up here at about 7,500 feet. Beautiful benches, wow. Here's the band, the traditional Mexican band. We stayed at a Best Western hotel that was decorated like a ski lodge, and our room was warm and cozy. It was nice staying in hotels with real beds and a bathroom only feet away for a change. We met a Mexican retired couple from Mexico City there, and Peggy got great opportunities to practice her Spanish with them.
The day after our arrival, we took a tour of some of the major sites. A cave that is inhabited by the Tarahumara people.
Donde está la señora es la cocina. Por lo general siempre hay una fogata encendida, porque ellos no utilizan el gas. Aquí tenían las cabras, ¿verdad? Antes. Ahorita nada más las gallinas, ¿verdad? Duermen en las vigas de enfrente. Por acá.
Several stops to look at strange rock formations,
Okay, now this is the Valley of the Frogs. And it certainly looks like frogs. Okay, Lake Atakeko.
and a small lake with similar rock formations as those along the shore in some areas of Lake Tahoe. The whole area is like Yosemite or the High Sierras in California. It's so much different than what we've been experiencing in Mexico so far. We also visited St. Ignacio Mission, a small church of the Tarahumara people. At almost every step there were Tarahumara children with baskets or dolls or jewelry asking, "Compra?"
This must be a school here because it's enclosed. Children and stuff over there. No children there. There's a school lunch program in the back here. While traveling in Mexico, I have been struck by the inventiveness of the Mexican people and saw another example as shown in these two pictures. Workers had to perform some repair task on the Best Western sign. Now back home, we would see a crew working on the job, lifting some of them up on a bucket lift or the like to reach the sign, but not here. These guys parked a school bus beneath the sign, lashed a couple of wooden beams to the roof, and constructed a work platform using wood and ropes to reach the sign. Very ingenious, and of course with not much regard to personal safety or OSHA requirements.
On Saturday afternoon, we boarded the train for the return trip to Los Mochis.
I guess he's checking the track. Okay, clear the tracks. Look at these people trying to get across the tracks.
After a 10-hour train ride one day, followed by a 6-hour bus ride the next, back to Mazatlán, we splurged and took a taxi back to the marina. It had been a good trip, but I was glad to get back to the familiarity of the marina. This kind of travel into less traveled areas is exciting, but also more stressful than the cruising life where there has always been plenty of information available on our ports, and there always seemed to be plenty of slips available. Next up for us is to provision for our cruise up into the Sea of Cortez, which starts in episode 16.